Did you know that most deaths after the age of 70 don't come suddenly? In fact, 99% of them begin with small, everyday problems that seem harmless at first. Feeling a bit more tired than usual, a little forgetful, or experiencing slight body aches. These are signs many people ignore. But often, these tiny changes are signals of something much more serious developing silently in the background. Take the story of a retired teacher who simply felt a bit off. Low energy, mild stiffness, and occasional forgetfulness. Nothing alarming, right? But within just 6 months, he ended up in the hospital with full-blown heart failure. The cause? A hidden health issue that started small and grew quietly until it became life-threatening. And it's just one example of the 4 silent health threats we'll reveal in this video. So if you're over 60 or care about someone who is, you can't afford to miss this. These 4 silent killers don't make noise. They sneak in when you're not looking. Hit the like button, subscribe to our channel for more life-saving insights, and drop a comment below if you or someone you know has ever brushed off similar symptoms. You might just help someone catch a warning sign in time. Number 1, chronic inflammation. She never saw it coming. On the outside, everything about her life seemed perfectly healthy. She cooked at home, avoided fried food, and even sprinkled kale into her smoothies. But deep inside her body, something dangerous was quietly building up. A kind of fire she couldn't feel. It didn't scream, didn't sting, didn't swell. It just burned low and steady, silently damaging her blood vessels, brain and heart. By the time she found out, the damage was already done. This fire has a name, chronic inflammation. Unlike the kind that shows up with a bruise or sore throat, chronic inflammation doesn't come with obvious signs. It's slow and sneaky, the kind that leads to heart disease, cancer, strokes, even memory loss. After age 70, it's the common thread running through nearly every major illness. But because it doesn't cause pain, most people never suspect it. They keep going, unaware, until something snaps. For her, it was a stroke. One moment, she was reaching for a mug, and the next, the world shifted. In the hospital, doctors told her something that didn't make sense at first. Her CRP levels, a marker for inflammation in the body, were dangerously high. "But I eat healthy," she told them. That was the hardest part to hear. You can't always trust your habits if you're not listening to your body. Determined to turn things around, she made one radical decision: cut sugar completely. No more just a little here or there. No more diet snacks or hidden syrups. She replaced processed foods with real, whole meals: vegetables, nuts, grains, and fish. Every day she added turmeric and omega-3 supplements to her routine, known natural fighters of inflammation. Within months, her markers dropped. Within a year, her energy returned. Her doctor told her she'd given herself a second chance. That was 10 years ago. Today, she's walking miles every morning, gardening in the afternoon, and she hasn't had a single flare-up. What she didn't feel back then almost stole everything. But once she learned to see the signs her body couldn't show, she took back control, one small, powerful step at a time. Number 2, muscle loss, sarcopenia. In his early 70s, a man found himself facing a life-altering moment. One ordinary morning, he slipped in his kitchen. Nothing dramatic, just a sudden loss of balance, and down he went. Within weeks, he was using a wheelchair, not because of a severe injury, but because his body had slowly lost the strength to recover. What really took him down wasn't the fall, it was something that had been creeping up for years without a sound. Muscle loss, known as sarcopenia. Sarcopenia doesn't arrive with alarms. It sneaks in quietly, often going unnoticed until basic movements become struggles. For him, the first red flag should have been when getting out of a chair required both hands. But like many, he brushed it off, thinking it was just part of aging. The truth was, his muscles had been shrinking little by little, making him weaker each day. By the time he fell, his body had nothing left to break the impact. Recovery didn't come from surgery or high-tech rehab centers. In fact, his turnaround started right in his living room with a simple pair of resistance bands. No gym memberships, no machines, just 15 minutes of strength-focused movements a day. It wasn't about lifting heavy or sweating buckets. It was about showing up daily and asking his body to fight back. Bit by bit, the strength returned. Equally important was what he put on his plate. Instead of skipping meals or snacking on light foods, he began eating with intention, targeting 25 to 30 grams of protein with every meal. Eggs, chicken, beans, yogurt. Real food that fueled real muscle growth. That balance between movement and nutrition created a rhythm his body responded to, and the change came quicker than expected. Now that same man who couldn't rise from a chair without help is out hiking every weekend. His wheelchair gathers dust in a corner, replaced by walking sticks and trail shoes. His story isn't just about getting stronger, it's about reclaiming life through small, consistent choices. No noise, no fads, just daily steps in the right direction. And it all began when he decided to stop accepting weakness as a part of getting older. Number 3, poor sleep quality. She always thought she was getting enough sleep. After all, she was in bed every night by 9 and didn't get up until morning. But something wasn't right. A retired nurse in her 70s, she started noticing little things. Names slipping from her memory, constant yawning during the day, and a fog that never seemed to lift from her mind. Friends brushed it off as aging, and she agreed at first. But deep down, she felt something more was going on. Her days became a cycle of naps and forgetfulness. She'd sit down to watch TV and wake up hours later with no memory of the show. She misplaced keys, repeated stories, and felt groggy no matter how long she stayed in bed. It wasn't just frustrating, it was scary. She began to wonder if dementia was creeping in. But something didn't quite add up. This didn't feel like simple forgetfulness. Her body wasn't tired. Her brain was starved. At a routine doctor's visit, she finally mentioned how exhausted she always felt. That small comment changed everything. The doctor recommended a sleep study, and she reluctantly agreed, not expecting much. But the results were clear. She had sleep apnea. Every night, her breathing stopped and started over and over again, without her even knowing. Her brain was being robbed of oxygen while she slept. What she thought was rest was actually a slow, silent drain on her mind and body. With a CPAP machine, everything changed. It wasn't immediate, but within weeks she started waking up with clarity. Her mind felt sharper, and the fog began to lift. She laughed more, remembered more, and no longer feared she was losing herself. What she once thought were senior moments were actually cries for help from a brain that hadn't been getting the rest it desperately needed. We often think sleep is just about closing our eyes and waiting for morning, but real sleep is when the body repairs, the brain recharges, and healing begins. Without it, we're not just tired, we're vulnerable. Ignoring poor sleep isn't harmless. It's dangerous. And for many, it sneaks in quietly, dressed in bedtime routines and false comfort. But once she took it seriously, her life came back into focus, and so did she. Number 4, nutrient deficiencies. A man in his early 60s, living a life that seemed ordinary from the outside. But slowly things began to shift. He felt more tired than usual, even after a full night's sleep. His thoughts became foggy, and remembering simple things turned into a challenge. His heart would occasionally flutter in his chest, and a strange weakness started to settle in his muscles. At first, he chalked it up to getting older. Maybe this was just what aging felt like. But when the confusion got worse and he could barely stand without feeling dizzy, his family rushed him to the ER. At the hospital, doctors ran a series of tests, ruling out the usual suspects. No stroke, no major organ failure. But then the blood work revealed something surprising. He was severely deficient in magnesium and vitamin B12. These weren't rare diseases or mysterious conditions. They were simple, basic nutrients that had quietly drained from his system over the years. A poor diet, along with some of the medications he was taking, had slowly stripped his body of what it needed to function properly. The result was a slow unraveling that looked and felt a lot like old age. The real shock was how easily this could have been missed. These types of deficiencies often go unchecked because most doctors don't test for them unless there's a specific reason, and many people don't know to ask. The symptoms mimic normal aging so closely, fatigue, memory issues, muscle weakness, that it's easy to dismiss them until things get serious. In his case, the confusion and heart symptoms were a wake-up call. But for others, this silent drain can continue for years before anyone catches it. His treatment was surprisingly simple. With the right supplements and a daily habit of eating leafy greens, his levels began to rise. Within weeks, the changes were noticeable. He was clearer, more energized, and stronger than he had felt in years. It wasn't magic. It was just giving his body what it had been quietly begging for. The transformation wasn't instant, but it was steady, and it reminded him what it felt like to be fully alive again. This experience became a turning point. He now gets his nutrient levels checked every year, especially vitamin D, B12, magnesium, and omega-3s. These essentials often fall through the cracks, but they can make all the difference. His story isn't unique, but it's one people rarely hear. Sometimes it's not age catching up to you. It's a deficiency quietly pulling you down. And once you see it, you can fix it.